I I would go to bed every night just hoping, desperately hoping I wouldn't wake up. I was desperate to die. I would have been happy if I died. Hi, my name's Aniran, or Noggy, and we're here to talk about mental health. So this video is going to be about my story of struggling with depression and what it feels like to start to struggle with depression. Just a little heads up, it's not fun. Spoilers. So I'm going to start by telling you a bit about my life beforehand, so there's kind of a bit of a before and after comparison. So I was born in England, outside Manchester, but my parents were working NGO workers out in Western Uganda. So I was there for like the first 3 years of my life, and we lived in a kind of like low-key war zone, lots of civil unrest, and so eventually we were evacuated out to central Kenya. My dad didn't come immediately because he's a doctor, and where people are struggling, you need doctors. But my only memory of that time really is my mum being worried about landmines and my dad's safety. So then the next like 14 years of my life were spent in central Kenya. I went to a school called Rift Valley Academy, and I loved it there. During that time, I got to know God a lot better. And my whole life, I believe God is good, God loves me, and it's my privilege and joy to serve God. At school, I played lots of football and rugby. I had a lot of friends. I did well at school. And I just had a really great time. It was a lot of fun. And it's kind of like weird because I didn't fit any of the stereotypes, unhelpful stereotypes of people who had depression. I wasn't weak or lazy or tired. But it just goes to show you the stereotypes are woefully inaccurate. So at the end of school, I went to university in Scotland, and I'm not really British. So I'm what's called a third culture kid, or a TCK. So my British parents are one culture. The cultures I grew up in, East African cultures, are another. And I'm kind of the third culture. I'm a third culture kid. So I found it difficult to adjust to life in the UK because there were so many little transitions. One of the things, like something as simple as how to greet someone, like who do you greet first in a room? Do you shake hands? Do you hug? Like, honestly, there's no consensus. Come on, guys. Like, it's so hard to know how to greet someone. I mean, it's not a big deal, really, but little things add up. Also, like, I didn't realize that you could get cash out of any ATM or cash machine. I thought you could only do it with your bank's particular ATM. So when I first came to St. Andrews, I would walk past like 8 other ATMs to get to my bank's ATM. But it's just little things like that, like you just don't know them when you move to a new place. But the biggest challenge was relationships, because everything is different relationally when you move from one culture to the next. And it's not that you can't make friends, it's just, it can be a bit difficult. So I just found it a bit lonely that first year. Nothing out of the ordinary. In fact, I think it's quite common and usual moving from one country to another to feel that way. So I wasn't too worried about it because I kind of thought it takes time. I knew that. I'd been to seminars on I'd been to cultural transition, you know, I'd seen things, read books, all these things. So I kind of was prepared for a challenge. I didn't realize how challenging it would be, but my first year overall was pretty good. So I started my second year kind of thinking, this is not so bad. I was really feeling really hopeful and feeling like this could be good. But about 4 weeks in, I realized I was really sad for no reason. And I had been for about 4 weeks. I'd been struggling to sleep for no reason. It had been a really difficult 4 weeks for no reason. I couldn't pin down anything. I started to lose my appetite. I started to feel lonely and anxious. These weren't things that were normal for me. And I kind of put 2 and 2 together and thought, I think these are symptoms of depression. Now, the reason I know that is because my school, they forced us to go to these like mental health depression seminars, and they were so dumb and repetitive and boring and unnecessary, right? I mean, none of that's true. They were amazing and super helpful, and I'm really grateful for them. But I thought they were a waste of time when I was in them, because I figured if someone had depression, they were just lazy or weak. But they actually really helped me when I started struggling with depression. Helped me identify the symptoms. Now, identifying it doesn't mean I accepted it, because as soon as I realized that, I was like, yeah, but it can't be depression because I'm strong and only weak people get depression, right? It was also I kind of thought, well, I can beat it myself, so it's fine. I don't need any help. I just want to say something about depression at this point. Depression is a serious illness, okay? And it's a very real illness. I thought it wasn't when I was younger. I thought it was just people being lazy or weak. That's not true. It's a very serious illness. It's a very real illness. It's physiological, psychological, social. It's serious and it needs to be taken seriously. And crucially, it's not your fault if you're depressed, okay? So don't feel blamed. Don't blame others for being depressed. Don't make them feel bad for it. Okay, now back to the story. So I kind of realized I had depression, but that's a million miles away from actually dealing with it. I wish I could tell you I was mature and wise and made really good decisions about how to deal with it, but that's just not really how mental illnesses work. I wanted to hide it and I didn't want any help with it. I've been struggling with mental illnesses for 7 years now, and I still struggle to come to terms with them. It's really difficult. Yeah, it's really difficult. Like, I would love to tell you, as soon as I realized I was depressed, I sought help promptly. I got on medicine, I went to therapy, it was wonderful. I told all my friends to get support, and I healed instantly. But that's just not true, and it's not what happened. I wish, it would have been lovely if it was. That's what happens when you break your leg, right? You break your leg, you go to the hospital, you get the x-ray, people realize you're in crutches. Like, there's this natural progression from, oh, there's a problem, let's kind of get it sorted. But with depression, it was so hard for me to accept I had it. There's so much stigma around it. I didn't know what to do. I was completely overwhelmed. Yeah. And so I started feeling isolated, more isolated than I ever had before. I would be in a room with my best friends in the UK, and I would feel so lonely. I would be at a friend's birthday party surrounded by people who loved me and would just feel like I was the only one in the world. I felt like there was no one who loved me. I knew it was true up here, but like, that doesn't mean a lot when you're feeling severely depressed. I just felt so lonely. I was emotionally destitute. I was so bitter and angry. Any moment to my own thoughts, I was just consumed with anger and bitterness and loneliness. And the rest of the time, it was just this bland, pervasive apathy, this indifference to everything. Like, during that time, I broke up from a long-term relationship. Complex, dangerous things happened to my family, and I didn't feel anything. I felt like a monster because I knew I should have felt something. I knew I should have, but I didn't. It just made me feel even worse about myself. Because one of the things with depression, it just makes you feel so ashamed and worthless. I felt like it was my fault that I couldn't tell anyone, or I would be a big burden to them. And I felt like I should have been able to deal with it myself. I didn't want to tell anyone. Like, it took me 6 months before I told anyone else, and even then, it was terrifying. But I didn't want to tell anyone because I felt like, no, if I have depression, I'm weak. I should be able to beat it myself. And none of that's true. I felt like to be strong, I needed to beat it by myself. But ironically, that's totally wrong. True strength would have been accepting I have a weakness and getting help. But it was just so difficult, and I was so weak. Everything started becoming really foggy. Reading things became difficult. Everything was just like a haze, and it's really difficult to describe. And then things got worse. Things got a lot worse. I would go to bed every night just hoping, desperately hoping I wouldn't wake up. I was desperate to die. I would have been happy if I died. I really didn't want to live anymore. Every day I would wake up thinking, if a car hits me, that would be good, because then I could die and nobody could blame me for it. And it was a terribly difficult time. And like, so God makes lots of promises, right? About how things are going to be restored, how heaven's going to come to earth, and how the environment's going to be saved, and it's all great. And how much he loves me, and it's all wonderful and great. But it really was just, I'd lost all hope. I thought every day of the rest of my life was going to be like that. And I just don't think life could be, I don't think it could ever get more miserable than that. I really wanted to die that year. I, I, I wanted to wake up and get hit by a car. I wanted to die in my sleep. But I knew I couldn't kill myself um, because it was more important to me to serve God. I knew that God still loved me, and I knew that I had to follow God. My my desire to follow God was greater than my how little I cared about life and how much I wanted it to end. And I don't think about what would have happened otherwise. It's just, yeah, it's not good. So after a lot of nagging from my friends, I eventually went to the doctors and told them all my symptoms. And he was pretty not great, to be honest. He was kind of like, yeah, just get some sunshine, give it a couple weeks, I think you'll be fine. And first of all, have you tried to get sunshine in Scotland? I mean, seriously, it's honestly hardly any sun here. Also, medically, he should have done a lot more. I was severely depressed at the time. It should have been fairly obvious. But GPs don't get that much mental health training, so the other hand is not totally his fault, probably. So the summer of 2014, my school had like an alumni reunion for my year's leavers class, and when I went to Kenya, I was still very clearly depressed. But as soon as my friends arrived, for like 3 weeks, I had no symptoms at all. I was energetic, I could sleep, I loved playing football again. It was so nice to see my friends, and I just realized I'd forgotten what it was to have fun and be happy. It was amazing. So for 3 weeks, everything was great. And the day my friends left again, all the symptoms came back. And it was like I'd been walking through fog. There was 3 weeks of clear paradise, and then more fog. But this time, there was hope because I'd been given a reprieve. God had given me this gift that I knew life probably wouldn't be like this forever. Because realistically, people do get better from mental illnesses, no matter how sucky they are. So, yeah, I just wanted to share my story with you because I want to help people. It's not like after that 3 week period I was better. So I struggled with severe depression for several years more, but I had hope that things would get better. Yeah, so for the next several years, I still struggle with mental illnesses. My depression has got a bit better. Medication, therapy, these are all really good things. But I'm just really grateful for that 3 week experience, which was amazing and encouraging. So I'm hoping that by sharing my story, talking about what depression is, that hopefully other people can kind of resonate with it and connect with it. Thanks so much for watching the video. Really appreciate that. It was really difficult to make emotionally to get through it, and also really difficult to make technologically because I don't have great equipment, and also I have no idea what I'm doing. So not a good combo. But really appreciate it. I think it's really important we keep talking about mental health, even though it's a really difficult conversation. So please, if you enjoyed it, leave a like in the video, and if you can, subscribe, because it'll just help the video to reach more people and keep this conversation going. And yeah, if you have any questions or maybe suggestions for a future video, please leave a comment and let me know. Really appreciate that. Thank you.